Welcome to another deep dive, everybody. I am so excited for today's topic. We're going to be talking about something I think you probably use every single day,
Yeah.
the English alphabet.
Oh, yeah.
We've got a really great excerpt from Worldometer. It's their English alphabet entry, and I think it's going to make you look at those 26 letters in a whole new light after we're done with this deep dive.
You know, it's true what you said earlier.
Yeah.
Alphabets are so much more than just building blocks for words.
Yeah.
They've shaped the way that we think and communicate for centuries.
That's right. It's really easy to just kind of take the alphabet for granted, you know?
It really is.
I mean, it's just there, right?
Yeah.
But this Worldometer piece really dives into its origins,
Right.
and it's a lot more interesting than you might think.
Yeah.
So for starters, it points out that the English alphabet is based on the Latin script.
And the influence of the Latin script is really massive.
Yeah.
I mean, you can see it all over the world, like Spanish, French, German, Polish.
Mhm.
It really highlights how interconnected languages can be.
It's like a giant linguistic family reunion.
Yeah.
And speaking of families, you know, it mentions in the excerpt that there are only 5 vowels, A, E, I, O, U,
Right.
and that 2 of them, A and I, are words all by themselves.
You know, it's funny you say that about A and I.
Yeah.
I never really thought about it,
Right.
but it kind of speaks to their very fundamental role
Oh, yeah.
in language.
Right.
Like representing the self in existence.
Oh, I never thought of it that way.
Yeah.
All right, now for a total curveball,
Okay.
until 1835, the ampersand,
All right.
you know, that little amper symbol,
Yeah.
was considered the 27th letter of the alphabet.
Oh, wow.
Can you believe that?
That's really interesting.
Yeah.
You know, it's a good example of how alphabets are always evolving.
Right.
Like what was once essential can become obsolete
Yeah.
as language changes and adapts.
Right.
The ampersand, although useful, you know,
Yeah.
it came to be seen more as just a shorthand symbol.
So it was like voted off the alphabet island.
Yeah, exactly. They didn't make the cut.
I'm curious, like, what was going on back then
Yeah.
in the 1800s that led to that kind of shift in thinking about the alphabet?
Well, you know, it was a time when printing practices were becoming standardized,
Yeah.
and there was this big push
Yeah.
for clarity and consistency in written language.
Uh-huh.
So the ampersand, while still handy,
Yeah.
just didn't really fit the definition of a fundamental letter anymore.
Right.
It was too specialized, I guess.
Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah.
All right, so let's time travel even further back
Okay.
to Old English,
Yes.
spoken in England, roughly from the 5th to the 12th centuries.
All right.
Get ready, because things are going to get a little archaic.
Old English really provides a fascinating
Old English.
glimpse into how our language has
Yeah.
transformed over time, you know.
It's like opening up a time capsule,
Yeah, it really is.
linguistically.
What is?
So the excerpt points out that Old English actually had 29 letters.
Wow.
Yeah,
That's a lot more than we have now.
Some we would recognize,
Right.
but there are these unique characters that we don't use anymore,
Huh.
like Eth
Right.
and Thorn.
Yeah, Ethan Thorne.
Yeah.
Strange names.
Yeah, I know.
I don't know why they called him that.
So Eth is written as
Let me see if I can remember this.
oop,
Ooh, ooh, or.
right? And it represents the the sound,
Okay.
as in this or that.
Interesting.
And then you have Thorn written as Eth,
Gotcha.
but could sound a little different depending on where it was in a word.
So like 2 different the sounds
Yeah.
interesting.
Yeah, so 2 letters for the.
Huh.
That seems pretty unusual to us today.
Yeah, it does.
What do you think might have made this necessary back then?
Well, I think it probably all comes down to the subtle nuances of pronunciation
Oh, okay.
that existed in Old English.
Yeah.
You know, those distinctions were important
Yeah.
for conveying meaning,
Oh,
and Ethan Thorne really helped to capture those subtle differences.
okay, cool.
Yeah.
So Old English had 29 letters,
Mm.
and now we're down to 26.
Right.
What happened to the others? Did they just, like, vanish into thin air?
Well, some letters, like Eighth and Thorn,
Yeah.
they gradually faded out of use
Okay.
as their sounds blended with others over time.
Mm.
It's kind of like a linguistic streamlining, you know,
Mhm.
where language simplifies itself for efficiency.
Yeah, that makes sense.
But then other letters, like J, U, and W,
Yeah.
they didn't even exist in Old English
Oh, wow.
and were added later on
Oh.
as the language evolved and borrowed influences from other languages.
So it's like a constant linguistic dance
Yes,
with letters joining, leaving and changing partners over the centuries.
exactly. It really highlights how language is this living system constantly adapting and reshaping itself to meet the needs of its speakers.
I like that.
Yeah.
The excerpt also mentions something that we all learned in grade school, the concept of vowels and consonants.
Right.
Now, I know this might seem pretty basic, but I'm curious to hear your take on their roles in speech and spelling.
Yeah, even though we learn about vowels and consonants early on, their roles in language are actually really profound.
Okay.
Vowels are produced with an open vocal tract, and they create those open sounds that give language its flow.
Right.
And consonants are made by constricting airflow, providing those stops and textures.
So vowels are like the smooth melody, and consonants are like the percussive beats that add rhythm.
That's a great way to put it.
Awesome.
And then in terms of spelling, vowels and consonants work together to create this visual representation of those sounds, like visual cues that allow us to decode written words.
It's amazing how these seemingly simple elements like vowels and consonants can create such a complex, totally nuanced system of communication.
It really is. And the complexities go even deeper
Oh.
when you start exploring phonetics.
Phonetics.
Yeah.
Okay, now we're getting into some serious word nerd territory.
Well, phonetics is simply the study of how sounds are produced and perceived.
Okay.
And it helps to explain why the same letter can be pronounced differently. Depending on its position in a word or the surrounding letters.
Could you give us an example of that?
Absolutely. So think about the word read.
Okay.
It can be pronounced read or read, depending on whether it's past or present tense. That's phonetics in action.
Okay.
The surrounding letters and the tense of the word influence how we pronounce that eve vowel combination.
Oh, that makes sense.
Yeah.
It's like the letters are whispering instructions to each other on how to sound.
Yeah, exactly.
And then you also have regional accents, right?
Oh, yeah.
Which add another layer of variation to pronunciation.
Big time.
Like how someone from London might say water compared to someone from New York. Exactly. So it's not just about the letters themselves, but the specific ways we articulate them. And the influence of regional dialects.
Precisely. It's this interplay of factors that makes language so incredibly complex and adaptable.
Okay.
It's never static. It's always evolving and shifting with time and culture.
Wow, this deep dive is making me realize how much I didn't know about the alphabet.
Yeah.
We've covered a lot of ground here, from like the ampersand's fall from grace. To those mysterious Old English letters.
Yeah, and it's interesting how through it all, we see that the alphabet isn't this fixed, unchanging thing, It's constantly evolving to meet the needs of communication.
Exactly. And it makes you wonder, what the future holds for the alphabet. Like think about how much digital communication and emojis are already changing how we write. Do you think the alphabet will keep up, or are we all going to be communicating in emojis and memes one day?
That's a really good question. I mean, emojis are almost like modern hieroglyphics. Little pictures packed with meaning. So will they eventually replace letters altogether? Or will the alphabet adapt and incorporate these new forms of expression?
I guess only time will tell.
Yeah.
But it's definitely something to think about.
Definitely.
Okay, well, before we wrap up, let's do a quick recap of our alphabetical adventures today.
So we started by exploring the origins of the English alphabet, tracing its lineage back to that Latin script, and how widespread its influence is on other languages around the world.
And we uncovered the ampersand's forgotten past as a former letter of the alphabet. And we delved into the fascinating world of Old English with those unique characters like Eth and Thorn. And through all of that, we really highlighted that dynamic and ever-changing nature of language. So what does all this mean for you, dear listener?
Well, hopefully you've gained a new appreciation for those 26 letters that we often take for granted.
Yeah, I know. I definitely have.
Yeah.
The alphabet is so much more than just a set of symbols.
It really is.
It shapes our thoughts, our communication, and really our understanding of the world around us.
Absolutely.
Well, with that, we encourage you to keep exploring. Maybe delve into the history of your favorite letter or learn about a different writing system like Chinese or Arabic.
That's a great idea.
The world of language is vast and full of fascinating discoveries.
It really is.
Until next time, happy lettering, everybody.
See you next time.